And this is the September meeting of the Wharf District Council. And we have an agenda that has been nicely put together for us by Suzanne. Some parts of it, unfortunately, we will have to wait to hear until next week, month rather. But we do, as usual, start with the Boston Police monthly report. And who is here this evening to share that?
I don't see them.
I'm here, Suzanne.
Okay.
Suzanne,
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Great.
how are you?
Oh,
Good,
excellent.
thanks. How are you?
Very well.
Officer, go right ahead and let us know what's been going on since, actually it's 2 months since we met. We didn't do it on.
Yeah,
right?
it's been quite a bit. So hopefully everybody had a great summer. Just to touch on Columbus Park, I know there had been multiple noise issues with the entertainment that's been going on there. We're very on top of it. It's kind of, as far as, the laws go, it's, they do have their rights. So, we're working with it best we can, but it is something we're on top of. I just wanted to get that out there. If there are any residents over in that area that are bothered by the noise, we are very aware of it. And we have officers visiting them frequently. So try to be sure.
Just to clarify, you're referring to the street performers that are in the park? Yeah.
Yes. So, we're very aware of it, and it's something that we're just trying to figure out the best way to respond to this and make it so that everybody is okay. To see it transform. And the complaints, and it's I wouldn't want to do it either myself, constantly. So it is something that needs to be regulated. But just to say we are very aware of it.
Thank you.
So first report, we have 2 a.m. on Sunday, September 11th. That was over at 1 Liberty Square. Officers received a call for an assault and battery in progress. The officers arrived on scene. They observed the victim bleeding profusely from his nose and all over his shirt. The victim stated that he was introduced to a friend from another friend. And as he was speaking with this individual, he explained to him that he was gay, and the friend that he was introduced to had told him not to. He tried to shake his hand, and the friend stated, "Don't touch me."
Okay,
and,
I'm gonna excuse me. We're gonna ask if we can abbreviate the personal details a little bit.
I'm
if you don't,
sorry.
if you don't mind. Thank
absolutely. You. And he did end up punching him. So, it was something we take very serious here with the department. Officers searched the area to no avail, and detectives are investigating further. So that was the first incident. Secondly, this is 5:30 on Friday, September 9th, at East India Row. 2 individuals were involved in a verbal dispute. This was over a vehicle that was being rented over at Avis, and the person trying to lease the vehicle tried to state that there were scratches, whereas it was disputed by the Avis. The guy eventually took the car, tried to flee, after paying, just tried to get out of the garage, ended up getting lost, and he circled around, got out of the car, and thought that the guy from Avis was following him. The guy from Avis came out with a crowbar type weapon. A struggle ensued. Police arrived. Luckily, nobody got hurt. There were weapons involved, so they were able to kind of squash it. But it seemed like some sort of a miscommunication. The guy said he was lost, and the other guy said he wasn't following him. But 2 sides to every story. Next report, just a few more here. We have 11:30 on Sunday, September 18th. This is at 1 Post Office Square. We had a B&E. Northeast security officer. He had caught 2 males entering the construction zone, and then they had entered the building. They were up on the 15th floor. The security officer did state to officers that other employees had noticed the same 2 individuals lingering around the building earlier at 10:30, so that was an hour prior. They were kind of shooed away. They obviously came back. We were able to gain access, and officers were able to place them under arrest. So it was a great job by our officers, and they were arrested for breaking and entering and trespassing. Nothing was stolen or taken, but they were lingering around the building. Next, we had a person with a knife call. That was at 7:05 on Monday, September 12th. This was about 7 p.m. and this was over at 110 Atlantic Ave in the Greenway. There were a couple calls on it that two males were fighting, and one was chasing the other around the carousel with a knife. And luckily, nobody was hurt. Ended up being that one of the individuals was trying to clean the park or pick up some chairs that were placed out there, and he had politely asked him to, could you please get off the chair? We're cleaning up the chairs. And the suspect became irate, chased him around. Doesn't describe in the report exactly if it was a knife, but it was a blunt metal object, and that individual was placed under arrest, and he did also have active warrants. So it's another great job by our officers. And lastly, we just had a little incident at 177 State Street, the 7-Eleven. This was on September 9th. Sorry, scratch that, September 4th, Sunday. This was just a simple A and B. The store owner had caught a guy just trying to steal a candy bar, obviously a homeless individual. And, we preach this all the time. The store owner kindly, tried to kindly step in front of him. And it was just something that's just simply over a candy bar. And he tried to, stop him. And the guy ended up punching him in the face. And, luckily it only punched him, because we see instances like this where, someone gets stabbed or over something, small. So, we do ask our store owners and clerks just to, it can be hectic if people are stealing time after time at these stores, but you really can't try to stop them at the door. The best thing you can do is to just dial 911. Luckily, he was okay, and officers will continue to investigate. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd gladly answer. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions? Sounds like sort of par for the course, relatively small stuff, but thank you for keeping us all safe, and everyone in the neighborhood really appreciates your diligence and your help on everything that you and your fellow officers do. So much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that Kate Gilbert Gilbert here. Kate is going to tell us a little bit about the Central Wharf's new art project. Kate, take it away.
Yeah, sure, thanks. Always fun to follow
we cannot hear you very well, Kate. If you
really,
yeah, maybe that.
How about that? Down?
Much better. Thank you.
It is 5 o'clock. Always fun to follow the police report with something hopefully a little more joyful. I'm going to share my screen now and introduce you to Claudia Komp's 5 Marble Leaves. This work began construction on it, as you probably saw a couple weeks ago. We hit some shipping delays, but we're ensured it will be to Boston by Friday and hopefully up by the end of next week. So this is an artist rendering of 5 leaves made out of Carrara marble. She took inspiration from the oak leaves above. Here's a picture of her. She's a internationally known Swiss artist who wields a chainsaw quite deftly, and she uses some of this old growth rotting dead forest in her Swiss neighborhood to create real sort of rough cut chainsaw motifs. She usually works she's very inspired actually by the Grand Canyon on the trip to the United States. Usually makes things that look sort of like leaves or cacti or coral. She then sands them down and 3D scans them. So what's really interesting about this is there's multiple iterations of the work coming from the inspiration and Central Wharf Park, to her chainsaw, to 3D scans, which she then sends to Carrara, Italy, where it's 3D scanned, carved out, and then a lot of intense polishing happens. This is Claudia with the work this summer before it was put on a boat to Boston. Also, I'll scroll back to the installation. Also included in this installation are plaques that are on the ground. These are fragments of phrases by environmental activists. Greta Thunberg is on there. And it's meant to, not only just be a really fun place to hang out and, very tactile experience with the marble, but also a sort of hunt and sort of wandering through the park and thinking about our impact on the environment and what we can be doing together to lessen that. So I'll stop screen sharing now. With the good fortune of the sea gods and port authorities, we'll be receiving the work on Friday. We will have crews in there this coming Monday. The artwork will arrive on Tuesday. And like I said, hopefully by the end of next week, the fences will finally be down, and you'll all be invited to make yourself at home in Central Wharf Park with 5 marble leaves. We are trying to reschedule an opening. We just want to make sure this artwork is here before we do that. So as soon as that date is set, we'll send out an invitation to Suzanne, invite you all to come for some apps, and we always have a good DJ at these parties. Any
Great.
questions?
Wonderful, Kate. That sounds great. Any questions, anyone?
How long will they be there?
Great question. We are trying to keep to a rotation, a yearly rotation. The piece that was out there last, we held because of COVID. So next September 2023, hopefully a new installation.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing those. Thank you very much, Kate.
Great. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Since we have a lot of children and folks around, and I know they love the stones and climbed all over them, so I'm assuming this is climbable, or how?
This is, yes. And growth rings before was also very attractive to young and old as an object of climbing. So yes, they've been made to withstand all kinds of climbing. We will have signs up that, persuade people not to climb, although one of them, as you might have noticed, is a bench, so we expect people to touch them and hug them, and they have been built to withstand climbing.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you, Kate.
Of course. Thank you.
There was some suggestion that Senator Edwards might be on the call. Is that the case?
I
Want to
don't-
welcome her. No, I don't see her.
I don't see her. They did send me an email, but
Okay. All right.
if she does arrive, I'll let you know. But right now, I don't
All right.
believe. I don't know
Yeah.
if Sierra knows anything about it. No.
Okay. And I see Melissa from Councilor Flynn's office is on as well. Is that right? Was.
I haven't seen her.
I
But-
thought I did. Okay. Anyway, moving.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, great. Okay, good. Moving on, we have a presentation by Daniel Brennan about the new Tatte Bakery at 125. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name's Dan Brennan, and I handle permits for Tatte in the area. I'm also here with Kevin Vargas with Tatte, construction manager. We have a new store we're doing at 125 High Street, former Cozy restaurant, I guess. It's right there actually on High Street. And we're going to go before the licensing board for a new common victualler license, non-alcoholic. And we're doing the community outreach process. I guess I could start by sharing my screen.
Sure.
All right. Let's see. So here's a photo of the existing conditions outside. This is the space that we're going into at 125 High Street. Our main entrance is just to the right. This is a rendering of what our main entrance would look like. It's just black painted storefront with Tatte pin mounted letters, fairly small, 9-inch, with bakery and cafe in small letters underneath. Here's a closer version of that, where you can see the Tatte lettering, and then there's a small bakery and cafe adhesive mounted, and some small window graphics on the windows. There's also on one of the columns outside, we'll have 2 placard signage that just kind of marks where we are, because we are somewhat hidden under the overhang. We will have some outdoor seating under this overhang as well. There's some nice existing pendant light fixtures. Here's our full layout floor plan. Here's our main entrance. We have 150 interior seats. There's a main counter where you order your food, take your seat, it'll get brought to you. There's also a display case for pastries and a barista counter for coffee drinks. And there's also 46 exterior seating underneath the overhang, seasonal. We have a small restroom within our space, but there's also more public restrooms in the High Street lobby. This is interior elevation of the dining area. I'm not sure if you've been to a Tatte before. There is another one fairly close by at 125 Summer Street. Lots of tile, mosaic tile. I have a rendering here of what the interior of this store would look like, with all the tile, the barista bar, the main counter. And our store hours proposed 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and slightly earlier on Sunday, close at 7 p.m. We just have background music at conversation level, no exterior music. And at the end, we have our menu. Let's see. We're hoping to open sometime in December, early December, hopefully. And the space is just over 4,600 square feet. Questions?
Cannot wait to have a Tatte in the area. Anybody else who's been there will, I'm sure, feel the same way. Questions for Dan about this Tatte coming in?
When do you go before the board?
We haven't filed the application yet. Was just hoping to do the full community outreach process. We do have an abutters meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, and then that should complete it. So I'll probably file that week. At the end of that week, will likely be heard, I would guess, by the end of October.
Great. Well, as a reminder, the members of the Wharf District Council will stay on the call for after the general meeting, and will vote on how to respond to your proposal, but I'm sure that Suzanne will be able to get something to you shortly.
Just a quick clarification, if I may. This is Matthew. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Matthew.
Hey, can you clarify the 150? Did you say the 150 seats are on the inside portion and the additional 46 outside, or does the 150 include the outside seat?
Nope, that's in addition to.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to count up. That sounded like a lot of seats.
Yeah, I think the bench seating, they have to count it by linear footage or something, so that kind of includes 2 seats there.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks, Matthew. Any other questions, anyone? Seeing none, thank you very much, Dan, and we'll get something to you shortly.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Suzanne Lavoie too. She's very helpful as usual, so thank you for your help.
Thank you.
We all thank Suzanne. Not enough, but regularly. So Luz is on. Luz is new to the New England Aquarium. Welcome, Luz, and you will be joining us, we hope, regularly at our Wharf District Council meetings. I understand that we had planned on having you and Rick do a little update on what's going on at the aquarium for the future, but we're going to punt that until next month, right?
Yes, yeah. Hi, everyone. I just joined a couple weeks ago as the Director of Community Relations. So as I get settled in, I look forward to getting to know more of you. But yes, unfortunately, Rick was pulled away. So we look forward to updating you all at the next meeting.
Wonderful. We'll look forward to that too. And welcome. I'm looking forward to getting to know you some more and hopefully seeing you in person at the next month's meeting. We are going to shift to Derek Anderson to give us an update on what's happening with our client resilience project. I see Derek is on, and we're at a very important stage in the evolution of this effort. And Derek, why don't you update us on what's going on?
Yeah, thanks very much, Mark. So just as a very quick update on where we're at. So as you know, we wrapped up our due diligence phase of the work. We were looking at a lot of the existing information, provided our due diligence report. And thank you for all who were able to contribute to that process. We're currently doing a little, basically reaching out to a lot of the various stakeholders and are starting to engage with the waterfront property owners. I assume a number of you, particularly along the waterfront, have probably heard from us by now with a request to fill out a doodle poll for a workshop. So please do respond to that, reach out if you have any questions. As part of that process, we have pulled together a set of evaluation criteria, which is really what I want to focus in on today. And I'm going to share my screen here. I do apologize as I share my screen. I'm not great at following the chat. So if folks do have questions, please give a shout. Although I will leave some time at, I do hope we have a little bit of time once I wrap this up for questions, comments, and such. Hopefully you can see my screen here now.
Derek, do you want people to ask questions during the presentation or wait until the end?
On this one, usually I don't mind being interrupted. If anybody's got something real burning, please, that's okay. On this one though, I think I would prefer to just go through the full set so people can get a good idea of, everything that we're looking at a first pass here, and then kind of hold comments to the end. We've only got three, well, basically 6 or so of these little boxes here that I'm going to walk through. So basically, we've developed a set of evaluation criteria that the Wharf District Concept Resiliency Project is going to use to assess and rank all the different potential resiliency strategies at the property levels. And these evaluation criteria will be used to inform the selection of a preferred set of strategies for the Wharf District. It really is based on all the comprehensive community engagement processes that have happened before us. So things like Climate Ready Boston, Coastal Resilience Solutions Report, as well as the Wharf District's own 2019 Public Realm Visioning Study. The criteria that we've pulled out of those processes are listed here on the screen. So we've got effectiveness, feasibility, adaptability, social equity and access, and environmental and additional benefits. And I'll go through each of those in just a minute. But I really want to highlight that when we look at specific resiliency options with the individual property owners, we're going to be using these evaluation criteria to provide a consistent process for ranking the strategies and informing the selection of a preferred set of strategies throughout the district. So this is a really great opportunity, and it's one of several opportunities for you all, because you are all on this call stakeholders in this process. So this is an opportunity for you all to have influence directly on the outcomes of this project. We're asking you, as I go through these, be thinking about, what's important, what's most important on this list for you, what's missing, what's not clear, and think about this and let us know your feedback tonight on the call. Feel free to send emails over to Mark after the meeting if you want. And I also want to note, this is a living document. This is very much not final. This is meant to solicit feedback, to give you something concrete to talk about. It's not meant to say, hey, we've done this, we've completed this process or anything like that. So as we get feedback from you all, as well as all the other stakeholders in the project, this will be updated and become, and will evolve throughout the project. One more thing before I jump in, I again want to just be clear about the scope and limits of the project. I think it's useful to keep in mind, we're identifying locations and elevations of resiliency strategies. That's things like elevated berms, raised harbor walks, even potentially creating new land outboard of the existing seawalls. So these are strategies that are going to protect the entire district as well as individual properties from flooding. What we're not doing is designing architectural elements associated with the strategies. So that's going to happen, we envision that happening in a future detailed planning and design phase project after this is over. So that means we're not going to be deciding if those potential berms or elevated harbor walks or outboard land are going to be green parks, or if they're going to be hardscape plazas or new water access points. Which I know a lot of folks are going to want to kind of jump into and be talking about, and that's okay. While tonight we're looking at evaluation criteria that we're going to use in our project, don't let that stop you from commenting. Whatever your comments are on, we are going to take those in, we're going to document it, we're going to compile it, and make sure, we're going to be pushing it forward so it gets considered at the appropriate time in this whole resilience journey. So with that, I'm going to jump in here. Each of the strategies, just real quick on each one. So the first, one of the strategies, and these aren't necessarily listed in order of priority, they're just here for consideration. So we've got effectiveness, which we're defining as mitigating anticipated flood risks for people, their homes, businesses, critical infrastructure, and community assets by using really reliable flood adaptation strategies. And some of the things we look at to assess effectiveness are the ability to meet the design flood elevations, the complexity of deploying the strategies, how extensively and how well it protects critical infrastructure, and the impact of those strategies on rainfall-based flood hazards for abutting properties. We want to make, we want to be aware of, if we're putting in a barrier, is it going to send rainwater to somebody else and make a worse problem for somebody else? So those are things we're looking at for effectiveness. For feasibility, this is defined as providing a practical strategy that can be implemented based on construction complexity, cost, and regulatory requirements. And the considerations here are the impacts on ground settlement and coastal erosion, impacts on coastal structures, permitting considerations, and construction cost. For adaptability, being defined here as the supporting the phased implementation of district scale and property specific resiliency strategies over time as sea levels rise. So what that means here is, as to how we apply this, we're looking at the compatibility of a resilience strategy with existing property specific plans and uses. So as we get into your, the waterfront property workshops, for example, we'll be talking to you about what are your plans and are these strategies compatible with what you want to do out there. We're also looking at compatibility with district-wide. It has to work for the district, and abutting property resiliency strategies. If we apply one strategy at one property, are we removing options from abutting properties, or are we making sure that there's good flexibility at those connection points? And then finally, opportunities for phased implementation. In some cases, we're talking about really severe hazards here for flooding. So we want, some of these, when we look 50 years out, they're pretty significant, but we're looking at the ability to phase these strategies in over time as we need it and as seas rise. Obviously, the very important criteria here of social equity and access, obviously high on everybody's mind, defined here as providing equitable access to the waterfront, safe transportation into, out of, and around the waterfront, and creating opportunities for new public recreational and cultural amenities. So some of the considerations under this category include opportunities to preserve and enhance the harbor walk, opportunities to preserve and enhance outdoor public spaces, public water access, and associated inclusive signage and wayfinding, impacts on views of the harbor, impacts on emergency access, impacts on public transit and non-emergency building access, and impacts on non-emergency access to the waterfront. So things like ADA access and so on, as we're talking about, if we're thinking about an elevated berm, we want to make sure people can get to the water, they can see the water, they know that they're welcome to be at the water. All of those things come into this consideration. And finally, environmental and additional benefits. So being able to provide multiple co-benefits beyond just flood adaptation, things like preserving and enhancing the function of environmental resources, water-dependent uses, private parcel programming, and the Wharf District's architectural and urban context. So this includes environmental benefits, putting in green infrastructure, opportunities. Like I said, we're not doing architecture here. We're not looking at specific architectural elements, but does it have the opportunity to create environmental benefits? What are the impacts on docks and water dependent uses? What are the impacts on outdoor private land uses? And is it compatible with the district's architectural and urban context? So just last point, I want to pause on that very last one because I know it's a little vague without context. In 2019, I'll bring up again, the District Council did initiate a public realm visioning study. And this is where we're pulling in the findings from that study, specifically the design considerations that that outreach effort identified as being important considerations in this process. So that includes enhancing public access and experiences, facilitating a world-class harbor walk, and also being sensitive to the historic context of the district, including its historic and currently functional character of the district's wharves and docks. So that is, those were important items identified in that 2019 visioning study that we're being responsive to at this point here. So that sums up the evaluation criteria. Again, important point here where we are hoping to get some feedback from you all as stakeholders into this process. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what's important. If you think anything else should be included, don't worry. If you're not sure if it gets done now or later on, we'll get it all in here.
Derek, now that you've presented this, these criteria, could you just once again go through how you would imagine these being used as we have these conversations about specific solutions? Because I think that when people understand that this is going to be how they're going to, how potential solutions are going to be ranked, I think it'll help people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So the previous work by the city identified a number of strategies. Like I mentioned, things like elevated berms or raised harbor walks or outboard solutions. And we've also identified a number of other strategies. We may be talking about elevating roadways and things even to protect against those water levels that nature's going to be throwing at us in the future, right? So as we look at those types of strategies, we want to dig into what locations do those strategies make sense at, and what elevation do they need to be raised to protect the district from that flooding. So as we're looking at elevations and locations, and we're looking at these different types of strategies, we're going to use these criteria here listed on the screen to say, okay, what are the opportunities? What are the benefits of each strategy? What are the trade-offs? So for each strategy, we're going to say, okay, this, strategy number one it's very effective, but maybe it's really got very low adaptability. It's really tough to fit it in with the abutting properties. It doesn't really do well at the district scale. So that's going to be a negative under adaptability, even if it is effective for a specific location. If it doesn't, if we're really taking away access to the waterfront with a strategy, even if it's highly effective, we're going to use this to measure those trade-offs. And this will give us a way to assess for each of these criteria how well each strategy performs. And that's going to allow us to zero in on a set of strategies that will work with the waterfront property owners, will work with all the stakeholders in this process as we identify preferred strategies across the district. So this is really the somewhat the heart of the methodology, so that we have a consistent process, a transparent process that you all can be a part of, and something that we expect and we know will ultimately drive this process to a good solution for the district as well as the individual properties. So with that, I don't know if anybody has, I'm happy to open it up here for comments. I see a couple of raised hands here. I can leave my screen up in case people want to push me to any particular slide here.
I see Tom Nally. Tom, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, my question is, how would you what metric will you be using? Will you be saying high, medium, and low? Will it be something numerical? Will it be narrative? How will you describe how well different options satisfy each of these criteria?
Absolutely. So for each criteria listed on the screen, the 5 here on the screen, we're going to be ranking the strategies effectively as high, medium, low. So we're going to give them, bucket them into 3 categories. Now we have numerical scoring that underlays that, that gets a bit into the weeds of it. But ultimately we'll, so for example, as we look at effectiveness, to give you an example, we'll take a look and we'll say, okay, maybe at, the Long Wharf area, we're looking at a strategy of raising up the street over there, some feet. So we'll look at effectiveness and we'll say, all right, does it get up to the design flood elevation? We'll look at how complex it is. Does it rely on deployable systems? Do people have to go out there and close gates, or is this fully passive, right? Does it protect all the critical infrastructure? Or are we leaving the MBTA vent shaft down at the far end of Long Wharf exposed? And when we do this, are we causing some of the properties to be subject to more flooding from the rainfall on the dry side of that barrier? We'll look at each of these things and rank them each individually, numerically, and then roll that up into a score for effectiveness. But at the end of the day, we'll then note that that effectiveness for that strategy is either low, moderate, or high. We are not combining, the scores of each of these criteria. They're going to sit as their own score. So we'll say effectiveness gets low, medium, high, adaptability gets low, medium, and high, and so on. And then we will use that to have a informed discussion with the waterfront property owners, with you all, so that we can say, all right, here's the pros and cons, here's the trade-offs. And it's meant to provide a good launching board for those conversations in a meaningful way to say, this is why we're selecting specific strategies. And if we want to advance one strategy, what's difficult about it? What's lost with this strategy? Which then helps us identify ways to mitigate those trade-offs.
So obviously we will be putting this this presentation on the website so that people can look at it in more detail, which I really encourage you to do. We have the first, Rose Wharf has the first of, I think it's the first, isn't it? Derek, of the meetings, individual property owner meetings.
Let's see, we've got, yes, Rose Wharf, looks like you'll be up first.
Yeah, great. So as we, as the group that are involved in Rose Wharf, take a look at the solutions that we might consider. And John, I think you're planning, Larrabee, you're planning on being a part of that, which is great, as are a number of others. We will be asking ourselves, are the solutions that we're considering effective and feasible, adaptable? Do they have social equity and access qualities and environmental and additional benefits? And we're really going to look at those things to say, okay, solution A does a good job, but it doesn't really make it. And solution B is better for the following, in terms of meeting the following criteria. So I think it will help us a lot to try to understand what we're talking about and what our goals and objectives are. So we'll put this on the website, and please take a look at it and share your comments, because if we don't have consensus that these are the things that we should be striving for, then that's a bad starting point for our effort. Was there another question, another hand that I missed? Joe Christo, I know that you're in your new role, but I'm sure you have lots of thoughts about this. I saw Chris Bush on too. Chris, you gave us some very helpful feedback in the earlier stages, and I certainly hope that you will continue to. These all should be things that are hopefully motherhood and apple pie to you and familiar. But if you have any thoughts on how we might refine it or change it, we really do want that feedback.
Well, Mark, this is awesome. It's a great next step in this project. And you know, as Derek was talking through it, I guess I was kind of wondering a little bit about the balance between the sort of qualitative and quantitative components of this. Is that something you're looking to have a little bit of each in each the different criteria?
Yeah, so when we look at the considerations here, you know, our process will result in a numerical score for each of these considerations that'll roll up into a total numerical score for effectiveness. We don't necessarily plan to, you know, report specifically on that numerical score because people, you know, you can get down into the details of, oh, well, what does 3.2 mean versus 3.4? And it's, you know, it's really more meaningful to think about it in terms of kind of low, moderate, and high once we bring it up to the effectiveness level. But it's underlaid by a numerical process that's repeatable and would be transparent if anyone wants to dig into that level.
That's great. Thank you.
Well,
And great work. This is
Can I
super exciting.
Yeah, Judy, please.
I haven't been to a few of the last meetings. I apologize. This question may already be answered, but talking about the stakeholders who are property owners, do we have buy-in from all of the major property owners to participate in this? Because we can come up with the best criteria. And if we don't have their willingness to work with us,
the solutions that are going to be proposed will be developed from meetings with the individual property owners. So we're not going to be proposing anything to them. They're going to be telling us in a lot which of the options make the most sense to them. I mean, there are a limited number of options for each property, frankly. And so I think that's the key to this effort, Judy, which is that we have to get all those people involved. Now, one of the reasons why we're starting out with, and there's a whole sequence that Derek has put together about which property owners go first, and there's a certain logic to it. But one of the components to that logic is that some of the property owners have been more involved so far than others, and we're hoping that as we develop as we go through this, as you know, we share some solutions, we get some of this ranking done. The question ends up being, you know, can we share that in a way that inspires others to want to be, who haven't yet been involved, to be more involved? So I think we have the first, I don't know, 6 property owners lined up. There are a few outliers that we're still trying to get to, and you know, sometimes it's because properties change hands, and but that is the intent.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, there is a question that came up, which is there also an input for those factors that are requisite for governmental funding? Derek, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, so under our, well, first of all, we are looking at, in all cases, strategies that would meet the criteria for FEMA's guidance for a flood barrier as kind of a starting point, and that's aligned with the Army Corps of Engineers, which would open up potential funding streams regardless of the strategies we're looking at. So that's to some degree a starting point for today. We're also looking at you know, near-term and long-term flood elevations. So we're hoping to, you know, design systems that could continue to be eligible in the future, not just today, or at least build the bones that they could be raised up to those elevations in the future anyhow. In terms of funding from more local sources, you know, city and state, we're certainly looking at, you know, the regulatory requirements for flood elevations as being a minimum, and we'll be working with the property owners as to what that means. But to be very honest, a lot of the other funding sources are a bit more nebulous at the moment with state and local funding, but we are looking into those. So at this point, we're really focusing in on the engineering feasibility, you know, how it meets these other criteria. We are looking at construction cost, but all of these should be, you know, everything that we're looking at here will, you know, we'll be looking to design to meet the maximum number of funding opportunities. We are also later in this project, once we've zeroed in on some of the more preferred strategies, we'll be doing a more detailed funding analysis of potential funding streams with those. But we anticipate pretty much everything we'll be starting out with at this point will be eligible for a fair bit of funding.
I think it's worth saying also that this part of the study is intended to be completed by January, I'm going to say ish, but hopefully January. And thanks to Representative Mikowitz and Suzanne's, talking with him about getting future funding, we are in line for another grant that has apparently been earmarked already. Isn't that right, Suzanne?
It's an earmark, not a grant. Yes, we've got it. We just have to fill out the rest of the paperwork.
Right, for another $250,000.
Right, in January.
Right, and that and some of that money will be used to extend this, to figure out not only what sources are available, but how to actually go about them, about applying for them. Norm, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a slide. So Derek, if you could go out and I could come in to share a slide. For those property owners who have not yet signed up for this, or don't know if you really want to, let me share this picture. Okay, can you see this photograph that I'm showing here?
Resiliency, Howard Tara's future
Right.
flood risk.
So for those who say, well, really, should we be doing this? That blue line represents the 1% flood elevation at Harbor Towers, and we are not an outlier. Every property along the water will have a line like that, well above their ground floor. And so it's important to respond to ARUP when they reach out, to set up these meetings and to participate so that we can come up with a unified solution that we can present to the city, state, FEMA, et cetera, to help get the funding necessary to build the appropriate protective barriers.
Yeah, Congressman Lynch has been very interested in what we're doing. You may recall he spoke to the Wharf District Council at one of the meetings last year, and Suzanne and I talked with him not too long ago, and he reminded us that he wants to come join us again, and repeated the point that he makes regularly, is that there's a lot of ARPA money, but you got to be prepared to be able to do something with it. So we are working as diligently as we can to be able to put a plan together so that when money does, when there's something to fund, we can apply for it. And what that looks like and how it becomes reality, I think is still something we have to figure out. But at least we will know at the end of this study how high and where that line should be. And the conversation needs to continue as to, as Derek said, we're not designing the public realm here. That's a big conversation that needs to continue with lots and lots of people beyond just the folks on this Zoom. But we want to be able to provide the technical information so that those conversations can yield a good design, hopefully a world-class design that's based on technical reality. So sorry if this whole thing seems dry. Sorry, wrong word. But we do want to make sure that the basis for all the conversations about what the space is, what the public realm is going to look like, and how the Harbor Walk evolves, and has the fundamentals that it needs to have. What other questions would anybody have at the moment? And again, I really encourage everyone to take a look at what's going at this stuff that Derek just presented, and it'll be on the website. And please give us feedback, because later on is not nearly as useful.
I was thinking what we'll do is we will put the presentation on the website
Yep.
As a standalone with information on how you can get your questions to whether it's Derek or someone, so that
Sure.
you can respond when you go in there. You can respond in real time. You don't have to try to write another email or something. So I'll work on getting that organized.
The social equity and access line item, which has a bunch of bullets underneath them, is obviously very important. We have reached out to a host of people in electeds and other leaders in the Boston area to try to get some feedback from them on who all should be involved in that part of the conversation. To be honest, we haven't gotten a lot of feedback from them. I think maybe they're waiting for us to present something or other that they can react to. But
Right,
that's what this is.
We did get some response back from somebody who's on our task force,
Yeah.
which
More would
was
be good,
very
though.
comprehensive, but
Anyway, so that's much of what Arup is doing is technical. That part is more social, I would imagine, is the way of putting it. And we want to get them all, we want to get them both right. So any other questions on that part of tonight's discussion? I don't see anything. Derek, thank you very much for that. And next time we will be able to talk about the actual property owner conversations with property owners and see how these criteria have worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Suzanne, any updates? I know you say you don't have anything new on State Street. Anything else that we should talk about?
well, as far as State Street is, I'm still working with Council President Flynn's office and Melissa on trying to get another in-person meeting together with the city councilors, but we don't have anything at the moment. And the only other small item that I would add to the district information is Joanne Hayes-Rhines couldn't make it tonight, but she wanted me to pass on that Christopher Columbus Park will be having their fall festival on October 15th, which is a Saturday. And when there is some information that poster or something, we will be sure and put it on our website.
Great, thank you.
And our next meeting for the, as Mark said, for the Wharf District Council is October 18th.
Right, and we'll get more information as to, we'd like to see more turnout in person, but if that doesn't work out, we understand that. Norm, is your hand raised again?
It is, yes. I'd like to just, since it sounds like we're winding down, I'd like to just point out that there's a meeting at City Hall this Thursday in the evening at the meeting of the City Council. Councilor Coletta from the North End and beyond sponsored this or called for this hearing. And the hearing involves the municipal harbor planning process, which was shot down by the courts. And it's looking for what went wrong and how can the city of Boston do a better process for the next go at the downtown waterfront municipal harbor plan. And since Wharf District is firmly in that, I intend to be there and testify. But I encourage others as well to either, there will be a live stream, there will be an ability to testify remotely or testify at the meeting. So check that out, please, on your on the City Council.
What's that time and date again, please?
That is on Thursday, the 22nd at 6 p.m.
At City Hall, someplace at City Hall.
Right.
Great. That's an important one. Thank you for letting us know about that. We need to be represented, no question. If we don't have anything else, we're going to break into the meeting just with the members to discuss the Tatte presentation. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay, we will see you all hopefully in October at the Leventhal Room on the 20th, is it, Suzanne?
No, the 18th.
18th, sorry. Thank you all.